distraction. If it's again, to me, if it's a distraction for a man to wear makeup, it's a distraction for a woman to wear it too.
No, you said earlier why it's a distraction for a man to wear makeup, because you automatically assume his sexuality. With a woman, you don't assume her sexuality in this culture.
That those.
You're tuned in to Kaz TV.
We're going to be talking about this video that we posted recently.
With school choice, it gets a little bit tricky, right? My first class had, the first day, I had 25 students. By day 2, I had 19, because 6 parents switched out of the class because they saw me, and they were like, there's no freaking way, before I even got a word in.
As a parent, I would want to know, like, do you not think that that is okay, or they're right to withdraw when they see you? Because ultimately, you're probably an excellent educator.
I appreciate that.
I have no doubt about that, but I think we get into muddy waters when we start trying to take that choice away from the parent.
Do I think that it is okay for a parent to see me and go, not around my kid? No, I don't think that's okay. I feel like that's really crossing the line, because you are, for lack of better words, discriminating against me openly. That's like seeing a black teacher and being like, there's no way. It is the same. It is the same.
It's not the same, and here's why. You can't control what color your skin is, but you can control if you decide to put on makeup or not in the morning. Secondly, ideologies can be discriminated against. We do it all the time. If we saw somebody that was wearing a Ku Klux Klan mask and teaching children, we would say, we don't want that ideology being taught to our kids. In the same way, if you as a man are dressing up, wearing makeup, and teaching our children, you're teaching them that that's okay. And I don't believe that it's okay. And it's not your job as a teacher to push your ideology onto children. It's the parents' job to put their ideology into children.
Hello. Hey, how are you?
What's going on? I'm doing well. So, give me your name real quick.
Oh, no, you're fine. My name is Yaki. Sorry, hold on. Let me fix the light. My name is Yaki. Yes.
Yaki.
Nice to meet
Yaki. Okay.
you too.
Nice to meet you, Yaki.
What up, Zach?
Zach. The other guy that usually comes on is Christian. So Kaz TV stands for Christian and Zach TV. And, so.
Yes, I was
showed
present.
The video.
I was present for that
just
part.
to get people the contact. Okay, cool. So just wanted to kind of get your thoughts, because for everyone in the comments, we kind of, I think we disagree on this. And so just want to get your thoughts on what you disagree about or what you might agree on. And then we kind of hop into it.
So first I want to say that the comparison of discrimination to being black, I think might be a stretch. And I think a lot of people may have pointed that part out. My point, or what I think is wrong, is that I don't think that a person can go into any establishment, whether it's a school, a restaurant, a movie theater, and decide that I want this person to serve me based on what they look like. I can't walk into a space and say, no, I don't want that person to serve me because they're fat. I don't want that person to serve me because they're wearing makeup. I don't want that person to serve me because I don't like their shoes. You go into an establishment and you get who works there. So as a school, being an establishment where people are coming to learn a lesson, they follow a curriculum, I don't think that it's fair to say, I don't like the way that he looks. I don't want that person around my children. You don't get to do that. If you don't like who is on the roster to be an educator, then you may want to withdraw your child from that particular school. But the message that is sending to the kids is that if you don't like the way a person looks, you can withdraw them from that space, and that to me is a problem. Because ultimately, the teacher said, he started school on one day, and within days, he went from a 25 roster to 19. And people didn't like the way that he looked, meaning that they didn't like the way that he presented himself, which was ultimately based on the makeup, which may be derivative of something else that they didn't like. I have a problem with that. Because I don't get to walk into any establishment and say, I don't like how a person looks, they can't serve me. That's my point. One of my points.
Got you. Yeah. So I think it's important. Like I said, I think the thing that I disagree with the most in that video is the comparison, like you said, of being black and a decision. So I think that saying, hey, someone can't judge me based on a decision that I'm making is the same as someone judging me as my skin color. I think that's completely wrong. I don't think that, your skin color you can't control. you know, certain features you can't control about yourself, especially biologically. You can't control the color of your skin. You can't control how tall you are. You can't control those types of things. But when it's actions and decisions, and then we're saying, oh, I made a decision to do this, and you're judging this decision, that's the same as you judging me based on my race. I have problems.
So I think I definitely think it's a problem with judging people based on their race, as I mentioned as well. But there's a lot of other characteristics that people may change about themselves that can cause people to judge, that may not be things that you can change. Kind of like how discrimination was based on how people wear their hair or hair texture or hairstyles. Dreads was a thing, natural hair was a thing, tattoos was a big thing, piercings was a thing, and that's you basing not wanting your children around me because you don't like the way I look, whether it's my choice to get a piercing or not. I found a problem with that, because what we're talking about, and a lot of the comments was talking about, like the influence that the teacher's going to have, or the perception of what makeup is, or how makeup is harming, how this person look is harming the kids. All those comments was crazy to me, because this person wearing lipstick or makeup was not harming that child. You commented and mentioned something about ideologies, making it sound like this person is openly suggesting that, oh, since I'm wearing makeup, you should too. Those things were not even a thing that could ever even happen if day one it was 25 and day 3 is now 19. Like, it's a lot of things that was said in the comments that really showed how, one, ignorant people are, and two, how much they discriminate and hate people, because it was more than just the makeup. Because if makeup was a problem for me, then nobody should be able to wear makeup, because makeup symbolizes the same thing no matter who wears it. So if the female teachers wearing makeup and the male teachers wear makeup, what's the problem? If you don't want your student around someone wearing makeup, nobody should wear makeup. But because people like to say, oh, well, this is the thing that girls can do and this is the thing that boys can do, and now the child is confused, and now the parent has to explain that adults can do ultimately whatever they want to do, they don't want to have that discussion. So instead of open these kids up to different things, whether it was a disabled teacher, whether it was a teacher wearing makeup, tattoos, or whatever the case may be, they're saying, I'm going to remove my child from that space as if it's not safe.
So now, see, that's where when you start throwing in like disabled or these other types of things, those are things people can't control. Deciding to present yourself a certain way, whether it's clothing or makeup, that's an action, that's a choice that someone's choosing to do, and that's
who gives
I
license to gatekeep how a person present themselves?
So, okay, that's a good question. So when it comes to teaching young children and creating a conducive environment for education, is there any line that you would draw to say, okay, this is appropriate, this is not? Or do you think that anything
for me, I feel like there's going to be certain things that's going to be appropriate, and that's going to be based off of the school district and the institution in itself. So there's going to be certain things that they're going to allow to happen inside the school. If this is a public school, I don't get to dictate what my kids' teachers look like. They look like people. And ultimately, I feel like I'm going to have a license enough to explain that people come in various different shapes, sizes, cultures. They're going to dress different. They're going to look different. Just to say, if I was to teach my kid that pink is for girls and blue is for boys, and they see their male teacher in a pink shirt, am I going to withdraw them from the class because he's wearing pink, and that goes against what I thought my child should look like?
So I think we got to be careful when we say what someone looks like. And that's the reason, because again, that's kind of, you can say that with race, you can say that with height, you can say that with disability.
You mentioned about how someone present themselves with the colors that they wear, the materials that they wear.
Right. The way someone presents themselves is different. So that's why I would ask you, like, do you think it is appropriate for and conducive for a learning environment for a teacher to show up in flip-flops?
Yes.
Teach a classroom? Okay. Do you think that it's appropriate for a teacher to show up in a miniskirt and teach the classroom? Okay. Do you think it's appropriate for a teacher to wear a swimsuit and teach the classroom?
That's inappropriate.
Okay. Yeah. So you would draw the line.
But again, I think the school district is going to draw a line at swimsuit before I have to. Because if I'm leaving my child in the school for X amount of hours a day, I'm going to hope they're going to have some sort of dress code. There's a dress code for the teachers. It's going to be one for the students. This teacher wasn't violating the dress code. In my opinion. So
if you're well, we don't know what the dress code is, but we can assume that the dress code that the teacher was okay with the dress code, right? But I guess my point here is, if you're a parent and the school has allowed some sort of new code or something that you're not familiar with, that you don't agree with, like swimsuits, for example, you would draw the line there. That if the school system said, hey, this person's allowed to teach the students in a swimsuit, you would draw the line there and say that's not conducive for a learning environment, right? In the same way, these parents have drawn the line at a certain spot too. And I guess my question is, what's the difference between where you draw the line
So the difference
and where
for me
they
would
draw the
be
line?
that I'm drawing a line at a space that's going to be impactful to everybody on the staff. I'm not just singling out on one person. So just like the people who said, I'm drawing a line at makeup, it wasn't they were drawing a line at makeup, it was I'm drawing a line at him wearing makeup. So when you single out an individual, that to me is a problem. If we're going to have a stance, it needs to apply to everybody across the board. If I don't want my child being taught by somebody in a two-piece bathing suit, I don't want it being taught by her in a two-piece bathing suit, him in a two-piece bathing suit, him in a swimming trunk. I don't think y'all should be in bathing suits unless y'all at the pool.
What if, right, but what if that's
again, if there's a dress code that the school requires and wearing a bathing suit is an acceptable outfit and everybody's at the school wearing bathing suits, then I guess I wouldn't have a problem with it. If we're singling out if we're singling out in one individual, then that to me would be a problem.
Well, it may not be one individual. Maybe there's another teacher wearing makeup, another male teacher wearing makeup, and they
have a problem with all of the teachers wearing makeup.
And I think because in our society there is a general consensus of this is something that is worn by men, this is something that's worn by women, and that is just a common understanding. And when children are seeing that, then they are going to be.
That sounds like a social construct that you may push on people.
That's a distraction for the children.
That's not the. I said that may be a social construct that you push on people. Society may also believe that blue is for boys and pink is for girls, but we know that that's not true. So I can't really say that I'm going to inflict those ideas because I find them to be kind of archaic and stupid. So I'm not going to be like, oh, well, men is for makeup. There's makeup lines for men specifically. So someone who,
again, like I said, it's not about the fact of, hey, this is Zach's opinion. It's not a fact of it's your opinion or the parent's opinion. It's the fact that I've drawn a line. I may draw a line somewhere. The parents may draw a line somewhere. You may draw a line somewhere, because I'm sure there's something that if the PTO agrees upon, you would not be okay with. And that's the point that the parents, I believe, are trying to make, is that I'm not comfortable with my child in this environment because I don't think it's conducive to their learning. I think there's a distraction. And then when it comes to where I draw the line or you draw the line, it's subjective depending on what you may consider archaic. The person who says, oh, I want to teach children when I'm wearing a thong and a bra and no clothes on over those, I think that if you draw the line behind me, that's archaic. So that's where I think that it starts getting subjective when you start saying, hey, they're wrong for drawing the line here, but I'm okay for
I want to say a couple of things. So one, I want to say, when you mentioned the part about, where you want to draw the line at, I find it to be interesting because I done forgot my point, but we know that certain things is just ridiculous, especially for.
But that's the only problem, though, because you calling someone ridiculous, those parents are calling that ridiculous, and you're saying it's ridiculous, and to them, you're being judgmental and you're being archaic, and to you, those people are being judgmental and archaic. So that's where I ask, when you say you're drawing the line here, they're drawing the line there, why can we judge their decisions to draw a line there, and they can't judge your decision for drawing the line first?
I remember what I wanted to say. Hold on, let me fix my light. So, oh my God. 1 second. This light is crazy. Oh, so my initial point and concern was what you just mentioned wasn't what the comments were saying. you know, the comments were saying things like, oh, it's our responsibility to protect our children. It wasn't a lot of comments about the lipstick being a distraction. And this wasn't even anything that was brought up to the teacher. To me, I want to say that we're downplaying what the real issue behind the situation is, because I don't think that it was about it being a distraction. All of the comments was like, oh, well, it's the parent's responsibility to protect our children. And I'm like, well, protect the children from what? And just like what you just mentioned, you were like, you were mentioning it's a distraction, it's not conducive to a learning environment. I'm trying to figure out how that's the case. It's not even a thing where they've had a teacher who had lipstick on, and then they have some baseline to say, well, my child had him before, he was distracted because of X, Y, and Z. They're just assuming it's a problem. No one has said, well, you just...
How do you know they're
just
assuming that's a problem? How do you not know that they don't know it's a problem? The
student was taken out of the class before the class even started. So for a parent to say that's not a conducive environment,
because they saw the teacher.
Right. So my question is, how do you know that's not a conducive learning environment? Nobody's been in the class. Right. And with the guy being a teacher,
right.
The other guy commented was just like, oh, you're probably a great educator. So there's a lot of other students in the class that don't have any problem with it whatsoever. So why would it be a problem for those 6 kids, but not a problem for the other 19? Walking around in a thong is a problem.
Do you think that
walking around in a thong for everybody is a problem? It's going to be a distraction for the students and the adults. I don't think that's the same as walking around with it. But
why do you think that?
Don't have us walking around butt naked. I'm sure in Africa somewhere, it's a lot of people running around ass out, and when a thong is a thing and that's acceptable for their learning environments, here is not. However, I don't think the same for lipstick. I think that there's a bigger issue.
Right, but it's not, like I said, it's not about just lipstick. It's about who's wearing the lipstick, and it's about what's, like you said, what's culturally acceptable in that society. You said in Africa somewhere that may be acceptable. I don't know. I've never been out. I don't think it would be, but maybe it is. I don't know. But you said, but here, that wouldn't be appropriate. In the same way, it's like you said, oh, well, that's kind of, we need to change that. That pink isn't for girls, blue's not for boys, etc. There is a societal understanding in our culture where that's not the norm. When you look at the norm, when I say the norm, I'm talking about like the bell curve, the averages, like the numbers. I'm not saying norm in terms of like what I personally think is like, I think this is cool or I think this is uncool. But if we look at the averages and the numbers, that's something that would fall on the outliers of the fringes of society,
right, but
not
talk about why that's not the norm.
And so,
because of the things kind of like the teachers pulling the kids out of the class, making it seem like it's a problem. It could be normal. The question, the thing that you mentioned was
right in the same way that it could be
a learning environment. And I have to disagree that wouldn't be the case. I don't care what color this is.
But that's right. But that's the same argument that someone could say, well, in this village or wherever, it's conducive for people to walk around wearing thongs and learn. Why can't we push that here? And maybe if people were more open-minded, we could allow that here too. That person could make that same argument.
To make that argument. What we're talking about specifically is this guy. You mentioned 2 things. You said it was a distraction and it wasn't conducive. And my question to you is, how do you know that if there's multiple students who've been through this guy's class and didn't have an issue with it, and the other students who was taken out of the class, there's no record to say that it wasn't conducive and that it was a distraction. And the other comments was basically ridiculous comments about how it's the parent's responsibility to protect their kids. And my question is, protect them from what? Because I don't think that he was harming the kids by wearing a pink lip. I'm not concerned about a person's lipstick. I want to know that you brush your teeth. That's what I'm concerned about, because that would be causing me harm if I have parent-teacher conference and your breath stink.
Right. You froze for a second. So, guys, can you see his video, or it looks like it's frozen? I don't know if it's my camera, or comment and let me know if the video is frozen for him, for you guys too. Okay, I guess it's frozen. I don't know what's going on. Okay, cool. Well, when he comes back on, we'll keep going. But the point that I'm making is this. He's drawn the line somewhere. They've drawn the line somewhere. He said that it would be a distraction and not appropriate if they draw the line, the line isn't drawn over here. But in some cultures, it may be appropriate, but not here. Which in the same way, he said that, well, the only reason it's not culturally appropriate here is because we haven't allowed it to be pushed. We haven't allowed it to be open-minded and accepted. There's a standard, a double standard that it seems, where it's like, hey, these parents can't put a line here, but I can put a line here. And that's where the disconnect is happening right now. So I'm glad that we got to the agreement upon that race and decisions are separate. I feel like that's a good place. So they say he's going to come back on. So we'll go ahead and he said his phone died, so we'll give him a second to come back on. But I think it's a good discussion. What do you guys think about this so far? Comments? You've heard both sides. What are your thoughts? Let's see. All right, there we go.
Yeah.
Someone said your phone died.
I'm back. Got you. So I'm sorry. So I wanted to ask another question as well. So I asked you two questions. One was the question about how is it determined that his makeup was a distraction and wasn't conducive to a learning environment? And two, I want to know from all the parents who think that they can walk into a classroom and say, this person, because I don't like how they look, shouldn't teach my children. Can a teacher give that same energy to that child and say, I don't like the way this child look. I don't want them in my classroom. Is it mutual? Can we both make that discernment?
Yeah. So let me go ahead. I'll go ahead and answer those. So I'll answer the second question first. That goes back to the first thing that we said. When you say, I don't like how this person looks, you're throwing that in the same category as race, of height,
specifically answer it for if
the
child comes into the class and they're wearing makeup.
If a child comes in and expresses themselves in a certain way, whether it's by their outfit or by what they decide to wear, there are rules for it. I don't know the specific rules because I'm not in that school system, but I know every school has rules on how a child can express themselves and how they dress and how they present themselves in school. Now, I know that there's even more of a strict requirement when it comes to the teachers, the adults, especially in front of the young, impressionable minds that are trying to learn in this environment, right? And so there's also like I said, I just always want to distinguish between not how someone looks, because that can fall into the category of race, disability, all sorts of things that someone can't control versus how someone's presenting themselves.
My point was,
and so
if there's
when it goes back
to
your first
with the teacher
question,
and the student being able to express themselves the way that they want to, but because of a person's, they don't like, they think that the way that this child looks is a distraction. They think the way that this child looks is not conducive to a learning environment. Is it okay for that teacher to say, I want this kid up out my class? Is that okay?
It happens a lot. It happens a lot. And like I said before, a lot of the time, it's very subjective. And that's the point that I'm making, is that when you ask, like, okay, well, what is a distraction? It's a lot of that is very subjective. And that's where I'm challenging for the people that are saying, hey, the parents should not be able to do that. They're not okay. They crossed the line. I have a problem with that because they draw a line in the sand of what they think is acceptable as well. And the parents have drawn a line in the sand, and they're saying their line is, hateful or judging, but their line is not. When there's someone else on the other side of that line saying the very same argument to you to put that line there. And so, like, for example, when you brought up the example of hey, there's someone in Africa wearing a thong and they're okay learning in an environment like that, but over here we don't do that. And then I said earlier, hey, there is a cultural norm of how men and women dress. And then you said, yeah, but if we were more open and the parents didn't pull people out, then that wouldn't be the norm, and this could be the new norm. To which the person that said, hey, I want to wear a thong and teach children, if you guys would be more open to me, that could be the new norm. So that's where I say we've got to at least realize both sides. There's someone on the other side of the fence that says, hey, your way is reducing the way I can express myself. Your way is restricting my freedom, and your way is hateful. Someone can always be on the other side of that fence, and I just think that it's troubling when we do that to other people and say, hey, your way of saying this is a distraction is really just a smokescreen for your hate. They could say the same thing to you.
My concern is this. I feel like there's two different conversations happening. So let me just break it down. There's the conversation that you're having, or your mindset, where we're talking about the bar and someone trying to expand it, and now people having opposing opinions because they're ultimately saying the same thing at a different level. You're saying one thing at the level of makeup. Mm-hmm. I'm saying one thing at the level of makeup. You're saying something different at the level of wearing a thong. My point in the entire video is I find it rude and hurtful for someone to walk in and judge a person's appearance and say, I don't want that person around my child. We haven't had enough information to say how distracting this person would be, how this person wouldn't learn, because if this person from the video was a teacher, I'm going to assume, and I'm going to have to assume, that this wasn't his first day as a teacher in his life. So if he's had multiple classes and he's looked the same way for multiple classes, where he's followed the curriculum and taught the kids what they needed to learn, how to read, write, arithmetic, science, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, their appearance doesn't cause their kids any harm, which the comments were saying, and it does not distract the class or cause the kids any kind of deficit. So to walk in and say, I don't like the way you feel comfortable in your own skin and the way that you present yourself, I don't want you around my child, I find that to be hurtful, rude, and disrespectful. And I don't think that it should be an environment where the school allows anyone to treat their staff in that particular capacity. You do not get to walk into a restaurant and demand a certain person who look a certain way to make your food. You cannot just go in and start ordering, I don't want this person, I don't want that person, I don't like the way they look.
Right.
They can't serve me. You're going to have to go somewhere else.
So that's where I'm gonna every time I'm gonna have to push back, because you keep saying how someone looks, and that throws in disability,
well, when I say
that
how
throws
someone
in
looks,
race,
I'm literally talking about their appearance.
that throws in
I don't like how they present themselves. I don't want them to.
I don't like the way that they've dressed or things they've decided to put on.
So that
to
goes
present
to
themselves
hairstyles. We could say, oh, I don't want my kid in her class because I don't like her fingernails. Her fingernails are long and distraction.
What about clothing articles? What about
clothing articles? I mean, there's going to be a dress code. So if we push the mark too far from dress code and make it something like a thong, it's going to be crazy. But I'm saying if someone says, I don't want my kid around something because they don't like what it represents, and that could be as much as someone's hairstyle or nail choices, just like his makeup choices, that is the problem. Because that's literally saying, I don't want my kid in that class because that person is black and ghetto, or I don't want a person in that class because that person is black and gay.
Oh, whoa,
Let's just talk
whoa.
about the bigger
Again, you're comparing things that people can't control.
When I named the hairstyles and the fingernails, I was specifically not talking about anything that was race-wise. Well, no, I'm saying the person may say, I don't like her hair, I don't like her nails, but the bigger picture would be because they're black. Just like the makeup thing, I don't think the issue was the fact that he was wearing makeup. I think the issue was the fact that he was gay. So I think it's a lesser blow to say.
Okay, wait, I want to stop you right there. What makes you think he's gay?
Right.
He never said he's gay in
the comments.
Wait, but why do you think he's gay?
Right.
He never said he's gay.
He never said he was gay.
So then why are you saying the parents are pulling him out because he's gay? He never
They're using
said
the makeup as the excuse.
So, okay, you're saying they're using makeup as the excuse to say he's gay. But earlier you said makeup doesn't show anything. Makeup isn't pushing anything. Makeup isn't saying anything about sexuality, any of that.
I said makeup doesn't mean anything. However, I'm also speaking for the people who said that this person is harming them because he's wearing makeup.
You said again, I'm not. People are going to comment. I don't know everything everyone comments. There's over 6,000 comments. I did not read all of them, and some of them most of them I probably don't agree with, right? But again, the fact that you made the connection of someone's sexuality and makeup, you made that connection.
I think we all
he never
made
said
that
he was
connection.
gay.
In the video, I think it's pretty obvious.
Made a connection about sexuality. About sexuality based on how he's presenting
It's called
himself.
gender expression.
Should sexuality be expressed to children in a classroom setting? Or can that be a
the same thing for straight people, right?
Could that be a distraction?
It could
is what I'm saying. Exactly. That's the point.
Are we saying the distraction now is the sexuality or distraction is the makeup?
You said that because he was wearing makeup.
Well, no. What I said,
sexuality.
I said,
and what I'm
the
saying
issue is not the makeup. I said, I think the bigger issue is because he's gay. That's what I said.
And I said, he never said he's gay. You're saying he's gay because of makeup. You're drawing the line from gay, sexuality, and makeup. You're drawing that distinction. And you're saying I think we all can recognize that that's the case. And if we can recognize that's the case, you said sexuality is a distraction for children.
I said
it's not a conducive learning
environment.
However,
I said it
for
could
children.
be. However, you cannot not have a gay teacher.
Okay, so it could be a distraction.
Because sexual orientation is discrimination.
If it could be, if sexuality can be a distraction for children, and you're connecting the dots of the makeup and the sexuality, why do you think still that that's not a distraction? And again, I'm not, dress however you want, wear whatever you want, live however you want, but when it comes to teaching children, young children, in a learning environment, it has to be conducive for the children. And that's where, like I said, I never brought up anything about his sexuality. He never brought up anything about his sexuality, but you drew the line at his sexuality, which you said is a distraction. And that's why I say, even you're saying it could be a distraction based on that connection. And I'm saying it could be a distraction without even that connection, but you've made that connection for me. And so that's where I think I can understand why the parents would draw the line there. I'm not saying that's where it should be. I'm not saying that's where I think it should be. I'm not saying, but I'm saying that we've got to at least
let me just put this on the table.
Why they would draw the line there. And we can't say, let me just finish this last sentence. I just think that I just don't think it's wise for us to just go ahead and assume, hey, they're hateful, they just don't like me, they don't like this person, and that's the end of it, and that's the real reason. When we just talked about how if they're worried about their child's education and there's a distraction, that any parent that wants their child to have a good education, distractions are going to be something they're going to
we got to make a lot of assumptions because we only looked at a clip of the video. So again, he never said in the clip that we saw that he was gay. However, what I'm saying is that a parent can get away easily by saying, hey, I don't like this about a person who may have made a connection about a person being gay because they don't want it, because you can't come out and say, I don't want X person to be my kid's teacher because they're gay. Because that's clearly outlined as discrimination without any question. You cannot say something about somebody's sexual orientation, based religion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
I assume that that's the problem, and I could pick out something else that I may identify with that particular thing, then I would use that as an excuse to get away from being able to use the real reason why they may not want that kid in that classroom. The comments were saying that the kid wasn't safe. And unless he was poisoning lipstick and giving it to the kids, I'm going by
people in the comments.
I'm just going by the
there's probably
rebuttals that
someone
I
in the comments
had for what it was.
that said,
and I'm saying that there's a surface level issue, which we're talking about pink lipstick, which if we just talk about surface level, pink lipstick to me is dumb. But if we dig a little bit deeper, because it's never just what's on the surface, it's always a little bit deeper. If we go a little bit deeper, then that is 100% grounds and base for it to be discrimination, without question.
Do you think that children should be taught certain things at a certain age when it comes to sexuality? Should teachers be talking about that?
I feel like sex education is part of the curriculum from when I went to school.
No, not sex education. We don't know what
grade there is. We don't know how long she's been.
We have no idea.
We don't know the video. Yes. Do I think that? I think there's a lot of things that. I think there's a lot of things that.
Do you think that someone's private sexuality, someone's private life, their sexuality, whatever is going on behind closed doors, do you think that's any of the children's business? Do you think they're allowed to pry and try to ask the teacher? Because I think that that's private information that not only should children, not pry about, but children shouldn't even be
like this
told about. And that's where I'm saying, I think that, again, if we bring it back to the video, I get that you're saying you're seeing a bigger problem of people mistreating people because of their sexuality. I get what you're saying. What I'm saying is, in this particular video, when these parents are choosing to pull their child out of this classroom, and we're saying it's based on how this person is presenting themselves, that is the same category of them being black.
Well,
that's a problem.
And
I think we get into muddy waters.
We initiated the conversation. We both said the comparison to race was there, so we can take it off the table.
We agree.
But I want to focus on at this particular point is to identify specifically that if this person is saying, "I'm taking my child out of this classroom," I want to get more information as to how is it distraction. How is it a distraction? How is it not conducive? And how is it an unsafe environment? Because ultimately, you cannot shield your child from somebody wearing makeup because you might run into that at quote.
Again, I said how it's a distraction. And you even said how it's a distraction. I said
it could be a distraction. But what I also wanted to add too is that when I was in school, you would hear your teachers teaching, and they may be talking, and they may say, "Oh, I have to pick up my wife," or "I got to pick up my husband," or they might mention having kids, or you might see a teacher that's pregnant. So again, there's going to be certain things that's going to identify some level of maybe sexuality to some degree, and we're going to say, "Oh, I'm going to shield my child from anything that's remotely pertaining to sexuality at all." Would it be fair to be like, "Oh, I don't want my kid in this class because the teacher's pregnant"? Because we all know how babies is made.
Again, my point was not about sexuality. You brought sexuality in there
what the issue is.
We conflated his sexuality with how he was presenting himself. Okay? All right. So you connected the sexuality and the makeup. I didn't do that. All I said was that it's a distraction. I'll explain it again. It is a distraction because we both talked about how it's not the cultural norm, and you said it's the only reason it's not the cultural norm is because people like that are pulling their children out. And if we allowed them to stay in, then we could actually move the culture forward where that is the norm, where that does fall on the bell curve, and it's not on the fringes of society. And to which I said, someone wearing a thong, you said maybe that's acceptable there, but it's not acceptable here. And I could say, well, they could say it's because of people like you that it's not acceptable here. And so that's what I'm saying is I'm explaining how it's a distraction. And I think the issue is where we get into the really muddy waters here, is when we start saying, hey, the parents are saying, hey, this is crossing a line for us, these behaviors, this action is crossing a line for us, and we're not comfortable with it. And then the response is, it doesn't matter, we don't care, you're going to deal with it. I think that's a problem. And I think that there's different cultures. There are different cultures of people that are not used to seeing men wearing makeup. There are different cultures that are not used to seeing certain things. And if they are not comfortable with it from the culture they come from, it is kind of it's almost like that Western imperialization, like imperialization and colonization of people, saying, because this is what we're used to here, you're going to get used to it, and we're going to force you and your children to follow what we say is normal, even if you don't think that's normal. And I don't think that's okay. And I don't think you think that's okay.
What I'm saying is that I think that the teacher, let me just put this all on the table. The teacher in red in pink lipstick, red lipstick, whatever color it was, I think that it was wild and bizarre for the parents to pull their kids out of that particular class. I think that the parents do have the right to shield their kids from whatever they think is harmful. But for me, I feel like they needed to pull them out of that entire school because I don't like the message that it sends to the kids themselves. Pulling that kid out of that class is teaching them that whatever that man was doing was wrong or hurtful, or because of the comments that were made under the video. I keep relaying to what other people are saying. It's not an assumption. I'll tell you, I read what they said. They literally was like, it's our right to protect our children.
No. That was the people in the comments. The people in the comments weren't people whose kids were in this guy's class. I guarantee you that these are random people commenting.
All right.
So are you forget me the comments.
Are you asking me?
You're saying. Wait, let me finish.
A public school.
Wait.
Okay.
No. I'm not asking you anything. I'm saying something. I'm responding to what you said, which was you said that it teaches the children that whatever this person's doing is wrong and bad. How do you know that these parents aren't taking little Johnny or whoever back home and saying, hey, the reason we pulled you out is because this is a distraction. And we want you to learn the most that you can learn. Why is that? Why is the assumption that it's just hateful? Because the person who comes from this other culture where they learn this way and you say, hey, we don't do it that way. I'm drawing the line in the sand. They could just assume
because it's not a distraction if a lady wore makeup, pink lipstick. So the makeup can't be the problem. Because in our culture, that's the norm. Just like in this other culture you talked about, it's the norm, and you said that may be conducive there, but it's not conducive here. And the reason you would say it's not acceptable isn't because you hate that culture. It's not because you're hateful. You're not a hateful guy. It's because you think it wouldn't be conducive for learning. In the same way, I think it's dangerous to assume the worst intent for these parents in saying, oh, their reason is because they hate this guy. They hate this group of people that they're assuming he represents, instead of just saying, hey, I think it's a distraction from his learning, and I want him to have the most conducive learning environment. I don't think that's fair to do that with them. Well, my point is going to be that I think that it's a cop-out to say that it's not conducive because we have not had any tangible information from you saying that it was. We're talking about it could be. The comments are saying people will point and laugh, or whatever the case may be. People's own ignorance is whatever that is. But what I'm saying is that you're saying, oh, they're going to explain to the child that it's not. I'm saying that there's people that went through his class, possibly, and had no issues with it at all.
Possibly.
It is. Well, based on the video, he said he was a teacher. If this is his first class, then whatever. But it's an assumption that they're going to be distracted. And that's a problem.
Right.
Because I don't think
you said earlier. You said earlier. I think it could be a distraction too. I didn't say lipstick could be a distraction. You did, because you correlated his lipstick with his sexuality, and you said sexuality could be a distraction.
I said it could be. Correct.
Yeah. So if that could be a distraction, you're saying that could be a distraction. Why is the assumption that they're just hateful? Why can't the assumption be they see it as a distraction? The reason why I keep on saying
that it's hateful is because all the comments were hateful. No one else, no. But we can't. The thing, no one said anything positive about what it was. It was all negative and hateful. And again, to walk in and be judgmental because you don't like the way a person looks. Because again, the comments, I'm sorry, because you don't like the way a person presents themselves. The person in the video didn't even mention that. The only person who said that it was distracting is you. The man in the video didn't even say it was distraction. He just feels like he should.
You said it could be.
I didn't say it could be anything. I said if makeup is distractive, it's gonna be distractive if a man wore it or a lady wore it. If makeup is distraction. If a red lip is gonna bother somebody, it's gonna bother everybody.
True.
It literally can be a distraction.
That's not true.
Why it's not true?
I'll
Because
tell you
people
why
teach
it's
their
not
kids
true.
that ladies can wear makeup and men can't.
I'll tell you why it's not the same. I'll tell you why it's not the same. Would you assume a woman's sexuality from wearing makeup?
I might.
Would you? You might. Did you assume this man's sexuality for wearing makeup? There's a difference. You did assume his sexuality for wearing makeup.
That pulled him out of the class.
If a woman wears makeup, the majority of our society and our culture will not know her sexuality based upon whether or not
it doesn't mean that she's not distractive.
I agree. I don't think women should wear whatever kind of makeup they want in a classroom.
Right, but nobody in the video but you said it was a distraction.
You just said it could be a distraction.
You correlated. You made it into a distraction because you went around to the sexuality and doubled back to it. You asked me, could somebody's sexuality be a distraction?
No.
I said it could be.
I never brought up.
After I brought it back up, after I brought it up initially, because I said that was the bigger issue. You asked me, could somebody's sexuality be a distraction? And I said yes. So then you said you connected the dots to makeup to sexuality and made it a distraction. And I'm saying anybody wearing makeup can be a distraction. So to my original point was,
I agree. I agree. I agree. Anyone wearing I agree that anyone wearing to a certain degree makeup can be a distraction. But I think let's at least
you can say that
realize what's going on here. You made the connection between sexuality and the makeup, and you said sexuality would be a distraction or could be a distraction. You said that, and then I said, okay, if you drew that conclusion that it can be a distraction, then how do you know other parents aren't drawing conclusions saying it could be distractions too? And you keep pointing back to, well, people in the comments said this, people in the comments said that. What does that have to do with the parents and saying, why can't they have the same brain in thinking about distractions that I had? I drew that conclusion
that's
to be
the
a distraction.
Conclusion.
Why would I think that they
that's
could do
the
the same
conclusion
thing?
that you came up with, and I came up with something completely separate. Neither one of us have interviewed the 6 people or the guy on the panel or the teacher to confirm whose assumption is correct. So you're speaking your point, and I'm speaking mine. You're assuming that it's talking about because it's a distraction and it's not conducive to a learning environment. I don't think that's the case.
No, I don't know. No, I don't know why. But what I'm saying is, you said it's not okay for them to do that. And you said and the reason you don't think it's okay isn't because you think it could be a distraction. Because if you thought that they truly are doing something for the betterment of the education and distraction, would you still think that's a problem?
If they were doing it because it was for the betterment of the education, that's different. I don't think that that's the case here.
Okay. So the reason you see a problem with them taking the child out of the class is because you are assuming that they are not worried about the education. Right. That's your assumption, that it's 100% personal. I'm saying, I don't know, but I have a problem with you and that guy saying, this is the reason why.
So do you want to have the conversation once we find out what the real issue is? Or do you want to assume on your part and I assume on my part, and then we just stay where we're at? Because ultimately, what you said has not been confirmed that it was a distraction. And my reason for saying that your case isn't so solid is because this teacher had 19 other students in the class who I'm sure learned whatever the curriculum was. So why was it such a distraction for those 6 kids? It wasn't. It was whatever this parent was teaching the kids for him to wear makeup was the issue, was wrong. And that has to correlate back to sexuality.
Again.
That's the only thing that makes sense.
Again, because I'm not pigeonholing them and putting them in a category saying this is why they said that. I am saying that maybe it could be this.
Hold on.
Maybe it could be that. I don't know, and I'm not jumping to conclusions. The problem that I have, let me just finish real quick. The problem that I have is when someone makes a decision, and their decision could be for the betterment of the child. That could be a distraction for the child's learning environment, a conducive learning environment that you even said could be a distraction. And the problem I have is you're assuming a whole lot about these people that you don't know, saying this is the reason why. I'm saying I don't know why, but I have a problem with someone saying you can't do that because the only reason you're doing that is this.
Well,
That's
this is the thing. I don't think
that's
fair.
fair.
Is true.
They could be
because you
they
stitched
could
the whole
be
video and you had a completely separate
could be-
argument about the video that had nothing to do with it being distractive or not a conducive environment. You talked about pressing ideologies upon children and this, that, and the third, which is completely separate from the point you're making or trying to make now. So what you stitched on that video and what you're saying now is two very different things. What I've been saying the whole video is literally the same thing I've been saying even in the comments, which I do not think is right. And again, parents can do whatever they want to do with their kids. If they feel like the educational system on who did the hiring for this school and told this man that he could wear lipstick is a problem, then they may need to remove that child out of that school completely. But if your child's going to come to my school and I hire this person to teach a class and your kid is in that class, I don't care what the person looks like as far as how they present themselves, if it's following the dress code that we have at the school. If there's not a law or rule against this person not being able to wear makeup and he's wearing makeup, I don't see the problem. If you don't like the rules that's at the school, then take your kid out of the school because, again, it's not the school issue. It's a personal issue that you have with that one person or that particular person. And we can tie that whatever disdain that you have for them to multiple things based off of what you said and the comments.
But that again, yeah. Okay. So, again, forget the comments. I don't know the people in the comments. I promise. I am not friends with those 6,000 people that commented. I don't know most of them. And I don't even know what they're saying, okay? So even the comments here, don't worry about them because people could be trolling me or trolling you. Forget about these comments too, okay? All I'm saying is this. I have a problem with them telling them, you can't do this. It is wrong and you crossed the line for pulling your child out. And the reason I have a problem with that is because they are assuming the intent of the parent. And for all we know, maybe those parents came from the Middle East and they're not used to Western society where men dress like this or men do these things. Even though even in this society, as you said, it's not a cultural norm. It's really not a cultural norm for them. And then we're saying, hey, the real reason you pulled them out is because you're hateful. The real reason you pulled them out is because of this. When they may just be like, hey, my child's not from a culture that sees that and that will throw him off. I don't want him to be distracted from his studies. Yeah, I'll educate him in this. We'll go to the mall and see people. Hey, we'll go here and see people. Hey, I may even take him to a show here or there. They may say that, but I think it's wrong of us to just assume the intent and label people a certain way just because of certain things. And I have a problem when people do that on the right or on the left. I don't like when people just go ahead and assume the intent of somebody and saying, hey, oh, this person's obviously conservative. Oh, this person's obviously liberal. Oh, this person's obviously hateful. Their reason is obviously a bad reason.
But in your own video,
and that's the problem.
Even in your argument now and on your own video that you stitched, you assumed a certain intent. You assumed from the video, from what I remember, was that the person who was wearing lipstick is going to now influence the kids to do a thing, which is an assumption. We don't know what that man was going to teach some kids. We would have to assume that he was going to at least teach them the curriculum. But you made it seem like because he's wearing lipstick, he's now going to influence these kids in some negative way. And I know you hate to say the comments, but again, I was responding to a comment, so I have to double back to the comment. People were saying, oh, where the kids is in front of the teachers and the kids want to grow up and be like the teachers and the teacher has this much influence and the teachers is always around the kids. Kind of sounded like the teachers was raising other people's kids. Like you said, if a parent want to pull them to the side and explain why this person is wearing makeup, they could easily explain it. Adults wear makeup, point blank period. Adults smoke, adults drink alcohol. If you want to explain why this grown man got a colored lipstick on his face, it's because he's an adult. Mind your business. Learn what we're in there to teach. This whole thing about, it's with those 6 parents who pulled their kid out of that classroom, their issues. And I assume that, again, like I said from the comments, you said disregard the comments, but again, the statements that I made were already based off what I heard and what I read.
Someone could comment,
then,
I think I'm Batman in the comments.
And
people comment, I'm telling you, people were commenting all sorts of crazy stuff. But the issue that I have here is, like I said, you said that you even said it could be a distraction, right? If education is all about limiting the distractions and focusing on the curriculum, why can't other parents come to that same conclusion you came to? What if the parents
So
do wear makeup? What if
just
the
go ahead and
parents
say
do have
this.
those things and they
I'm
say,
gonna just
hey,
go
I
ahead and
just
say
think it's
this.
not conducive
If
for
there
this
is a
environment?
situation that something is a distraction, I think that there's a better way it could be handled than to make it personal against that person. If they had an issue with the distraction,
How is that?
he said in the video,
Okay.
they said, I don't like the way, I don't want that around my child. So that was personal. So again, I feel like there's a way and a process that it could have been done without ostracizing and making a person feel like shit. That person felt terrible in that video when someone walked in and judged him and said that they don't want that around their child. That was a problem for me, period. That's not going to change. If someone said that about you, I would have a problem with it. I don't want that around my child would be a problem, period.
If someone's referring to that and saying that, and wait, well, we weren't there, but if someone's saying that, again, if somebody says that, I don't want that, and referring to a person as that, then I disagree with that 100%. If someone's saying, I don't want that action around my child, and when they say that, they're talking about this action or behavior, I think that's perfectly okay. But we're on the same page.
I don't want that.
When it comes to no one should be viewed as a that. Everyone has equal value in the eyes of God, no matter even how you present yourself. People have value because we were made in the image and likeness of God. We're on the same page there. My problem is when we are assuming the parent's intent, and then even when we've made a connection or you've made a connection to a distraction for the children, and then we're assuming the parents didn't make that connection, they're really just hateful. That's the problem I have. And I think, especially as a country, and this is why I think it's good for us to have this conversation, is I'm not assuming, oh, you're just some hateful person that just wants to hate these kids or hate these parents. Not assuming that. But I think that we naturally get into that mode where, hey, maybe I was hurt by something. Maybe this person was hurt by something. And this action reminds me of something this person did. I bet it's something like that. And we got to make sure we don't do that. Because, like I said, this could be a Middle Eastern family that just came here from a war-torn country, and they want to give their child the best education, and they know their child's not used to seeing that, and it's going to be a distraction. It could have been a whole group of them, and maybe that's why it was 9 kids.
What I'm saying,
it could have been anything like that. So I will agree. I just don't think that it's fair to assume those things.
I think
if we don't know that.
A point somewhat with saying to pass the judgment so harshly to say that it's hate, but I got to be honest. We can't rule that out as part of the issue. To ignore that and completely say that, oh, it was only done because of these good things, we are giving way too much. We are giving these people way too much credit, because I don't think that it was predicated in it being a distraction. I got to be honest. And from the comments from people who say, I'm a teacher, I'm a parent, I'm a this, I'm a that, so on and so forth. Again, if you got a problem with the school because of what the school allows and you don't want that, is what they said in the video, around your child, I think there's different ways that it could be handled. That's my whole point. I think that it was rude. And I have to agree that him comparing this to being black, again, being black is not a choice. You can't change your skin color. I mean, you can, but you can't.
Right.
But
exactly.
It is what it is. But I don't think the way that it was handled by the teachers sent a good message to the children. And I think it could have been handled in a completely different way. Parents, again, have the right to raise their kids any kind of way they want to, around whatever they want to, and that's fine. But again, you don't get to go into a school and demand certain things. I don't think you can, and especially in that particular way. Because I just feel like there's a level of protection that teacher is warranted that I don't think he had.
Of course. No, I think the area I agree is, I think people that have no option or no choice over certain things about them, you need to be protected for that 100%, because you can't control that. But when it comes to a way that you are expressing yourself, especially if it's, hey, I think this would be a distraction, I don't think this is okay, I don't think this is whatever. I think that, like I said, I think we're getting into gray area when we start saying we can't judge actions. And it's, and so that's one of the big issues. And so I think, again, I'm glad we came to the same conclusion about the race thing, because I think that we really need to get to a place where we separate actions from race, because I don't know about you, we've seen a whole lot of comparing everything anyone goes through, even if it's like, hey, I'm a Frisbee player. I'm a Frisbee player. I go through the same thing black people went through. You can't compare it to being black. You can't control being black. You can control certain things.
Have interesting points. So, I'm in the middle of getting my hair done, so I got to go. But listen, we got to connect and talk more. Cool?
Yeah, cool. I appreciate it. Thanks for hopping on.